Hey there, I am Kimberly Hayes-Muga.
And I'm Amanda Day.
And you're listening to the Fundraising HayDay podcast, y'all.
Where we cover the how-tos of grants and fundraising.
And how we can all do a better job at changing the world through philanthropy.
And Patreon subscribers can get these episodes early.
So we've been sharing interviews from our time at 2024's GrantSummit at the end of last year. And that's something that the Grant Professionals Association puts on. And we were delighted to be the official podcast there. If you like our podcast and you would like to see what we look like standing up, we are available to come to you and deliver keynotes, workshops. We're also available for online webinars and all sorts of good things. We delight in putting together training that's customized to what your agency or your association is seeking. We just love that. And we would love to do that for you. So just check us out. If you want to learn more, head over to our website. It's HayDay, HayDayServices.com. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can see a list of topics that we have already ready to go that we could customize for you as needed. So we'd love to do it. Give us a holler.
Yep. We love interacting with others at live events. And we also podcast at events as well. So all kinds of things you can hire us for. In the meantime, we want to share today's episode, which includes a series of podcasts we recorded during the 2024 Grant Summit powered by the Grant Professionals Association. We interviewed a variety of individuals about their professional development and volunteerism and more. It's a great way for you to understand how you can give back to an organization, but also what that does for you. Because when you're giving back, you tend to get as well, right? I know personally, and Kimberly, I know you feel the same way. We have both volunteered at committee level, on board levels for a variety of organizations. And it just really is a great way to hone your leadership chops, to learn new things, to meet new people. So we highly recommend volunteering, whether it's for the Grant Professionals Association or whatever membership organization you are a part of. So we can't wait to share all this knowledge and insight with all these interviews today. And a reminder, we recorded this during Grant Summit inside the exhibitors hall, which, is always loud because people are mingling and communicating and doing wonderful things. So there's going to be some background noise, but that's okay because the interviews were fabo.
So listen, y'all, we are thrilled to have Kim Joyce and Associates returning as the season 8 sponsor for the first half of our season 8, which is crazy. CEO Kim Joyce and her team are celebrating 15 years of success with new service lines, all while expanding the depth and the breadth of their existing services. Kim is joining us to talk about trends in the field and more with a mini series that you'll hear at the beginning of each of the 12 episodes that Kim Joyce and Associates are sponsoring this season. So Kim, the evaluation section on a typical grant proposal usually comes toward the end, one of the last questions, but it's certainly not the least question. In fact, it's probably one of the most important questions. How are you and the team at Kim Joyce and Associates expanding evaluation services, and why are you choosing to expand them now?
Yeah. We chose to expand them because we have clients that need those services. We also have extremely qualified staff who have a lot of external evaluation experience. And so we're trying to match our clients' needs with our skill sets and offer that service. And evaluation is an extremely important part of a grant application. Sometimes we start with that first, we start at the end, and really kind of work back in our proposals and really figure out, what are those outcomes that the client needs to achieve? What can they commit to? How are they going to collect their data? So those are really important elements of an application, and we want to make them as strong and competitive as possible. So again, we have internal staff and are meeting a client need, and we're expanding those services in 2025.
To find out more about Kim Joyce and Associates and their many incredible service lines, visit kimjoyceandassociates.com. They are a one-stop shop for all your grant-related needs. kicking off today's series of interviews with Barb Boggs, CMP. She is a seasoned event planning professional with over a decade of experience in her field. Most of us know her as the events and governance managers for the Grant Professionals Association. Her biggest event she's in charge of is the GrantSummit, of which nearly 1,000 people attended in person in 2024 and around 500 or so online. So let's take a sneak peek behind the curtain with Barb to better understand what goes into making an event this size run so well. So, well, welcome to the podcast, Barb. I can't believe it's taken this long to get you on here.
I like to be behind the scenes.
This is true. This is true. So, Barb, you joined the staff at GPA in July of 2010 and are now the second longest serving member of the staff, which is amazing. And if you've involved with GPA at any point in time, I feel like you've met Barb Boggs, right?
Or emailed with her.
Yes, communicated in some way, shape, or form.
Very true.
So you've seen this organization grow in terms of membership and offerings over the years, and one of the biggest events is obviously our annual conference, which has been rebranded GrantSummit.
And we're here. And so if you're listening later and you're hearing people talk in the background, it's okay. We know that.
Yeah.
It's a big old exhibit hall, and that's cool.
It is true. So my question is, as the events and governance manager, basically the individual behind making all of the magic happen here, and very beautifully, I may add, we'd love a quick rundown of how early you start planning and basically what all it takes. Because we just show up and it's a great 2.5 days, but I'm guessing it's not as easy as that.
Not quite that easy. Yes. Typically, we start about 4 years in advance working on an event. So it's 2024. We just booked our 2028 contract for GrantSummit.
Gotcha.
Because we've gotten so large, in order to stay in a hotel and not have to go to a conference center, which we're trying to avoid because it's more intimate to be in the same space in the hotel, staying with everybody, we are limited on places we can go.
Yeah.
So we have to start planning about 4 years in advance now.
Okay. Wow.
But for the actual year that we're working on, so 2024 is about to wrap up. Next week, I will officially wrap up 24, and then we will move right into planning for 2025, which is in Baltimore next year.
And it's in November.
It's in
October, November?
It's the end of October, 1st of November next year.
So you're starting a whole year in advance for the next year's.
Yes. We start planning out. We get our contracts together with all of our vendors who are going to come, especially like our AV team. If we're bringing in the hybrid option again, we have to figure out what our event platform is going to look like and how that's going to work, if we need to bring on extra teams for that. So it is a collaborative effort between a lot of us to get all of it pulled together.
Yeah.
We make multiple trips, so we'll start our first trip probably in February or March to go out there, walk the space again, make sure we know what the layout's going to look like, so that when we start planning the sessions, which rooms are going to work best to have interactive sessions in, which rooms are going to work best to be more of a lecture style section.
Yeah.
For the hybrid option, which rooms have the better sound quality, so that the hybrid, the online audience can hear everything that goes into it.
That's true.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So I do a majority of the work, but the full team at GPA helps. Kelly runs our exhibitors. Aaron does a lot with the sessions now, the speakers, which we start our call for presenters in January.
Yeah.
So it is a year-long process to get through it all.
Yeah. I think the thing that I had never even thought about, I mean, obviously you've got to feed people, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But I think the thing that amazed me the most was the first time you had, I think on Facebook, because we're Facebook friends, you had commented on, you didn't share anybody's personal information. You just had a spreadsheet that showed the number of people for all the different dietary restrictions. And if you don't think about it, you're like, okay, yeah, well, we got vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, and maybe an allergy. But I was in awe, first of all, of how many different things you have to be mindful of.
That. I mean, I knew about as a vegetarian, mostly vegan. I'm like appreciative, but I didn't realize, I thought it was like that and maybe some allergies. And I'm thinking now I'm learning, no.
It's a lot of things.
I would say a third of our people have some sort of dietary allergy, dietary
preference,
okay, like vegetarian or vegan, but there are a lot of allergies too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So one of them being, the biggest one that surprised me was the chicken allergy.
Yeah. I've never heard of that.
That one surprised me, and we serve a lot of chicken because most people eat chicken, and it's very it's
Affordable.
an easy,
Yes.
affordable option.
Uh-huh.
So appealing to the masses
Yes.
is difficult, but we try and do a lot of build your own stuff for that reason. So like yesterday we had taco baller. You could build your own tacos.
Yes.
You know, so it's a little easier, and especially for people like who have a dairy allergy, then they don't have to pick up the cheese. They
Yes.
don't have to do.
Yeah.
So make it a little bit easier to
Uh-huh.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, but that's just one thing. I mean, you're right. It's the room, figuring out which. Not only I think it's hard to figuring out like, okay, this is a good room for a hybrid session, but also trying to gauge, is this going to be a
Numbers.
popular one?
Yes.
Should it be in the big room or should it be in a small room because it's not as the topic isn't as
as appealing.
pressing, right?
Yeah. Or it's a more like I was saying, like public
Nuanced.
safety. So it's a more nuanced session where not as many people are going to attend. So you're like, okay, we can put it in that room.
Yeah.
But then it surprises us when we get on site. So we think we have it all planned out. It's going to be great. And then you walk into your room and you're like, oh, we have people spilling into the hall. And so you're like, okay, after this session, we're going to change the setup in this room. And, so there's a lot of on the fly when we get on site too.
Yeah.
And
I have a question.
Go.
yeah.
So you're so good at this, and you've been doing it a long time. So you must like it.
I do like it.
Because it's giving me a little like vicarious stress just to hear this. It's like, because that's like, and we're going to change these rooms around, and we're going to come in, because I'm
and
more
the
of a planner girl.
AV truck broke down, so it's late, so we're just going to deal with it. And you just did it all with a smile
You're like,
on your
there's
face.
this thing that's going on. But so what about just sort of the managing logistics? Is that
I
what
love
gets,
logistics.
okay.
Yeah. So I'm
Figuring
a
things out?
teacher by trade. That's what I
Okay.
went to school to be, was a math.
Okay.
I was a math
okay.
teacher.
Oh, okay.
it's all
It's
coming
all-
on
it's all
middle
coming
place.
back.
And middle school math. So
Oh, bless you.
She's doing the Lord's work. My husband teaches, and some of his students are middle school.
Okay.
I would think that he would say that that's a
a hard
challenging
age.
time.
Yes, I love middle schoolers though. They're sweet enough. They still kind of care what you think, but they're old enough you can talk to them like humans.
I think your mileage may vary, but I totally get where you're coming
Yes.
from.
Yes.
I love logistics. So I love figuring out like how you can fit so many people in, how you can make everything work.
Wow.
And one of the things what I really love about working for GPA itself is the family atmosphere. Everybody enjoys being together, and so that's
Yes.
what makes it so much easier for us to do our job, because we know people want to be together. So what can we do to make it easier for you guys
Yes.
and make it easier for you to find each other and to connect and doing all of that? And that's one of the reasons we still do the virtual component for GrantSummit, is because we know people can't travel.
I think
Yes.
that's really smart.
And so it's another way for them to be able to connect even though they can't be here with all
person.
of us.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot that goes into that decision, but I've heard several of our colleagues are like, we just don't have the budget, so we're going to do this. They prefer to be in person, but it's nice to have that option.
Well, and that's one of the reasons we also, for GrantSummit, move it around the country. So this year we're in Denver, next year we're in Baltimore, and then we go to San Antonio, Phoenix,
Yeah.
then New Orleans. So we really try to move, because we also know, like, when we're on the East Coast, it's really hard for those on the West to come all the
Yeah.
way.
Flights are going to be more expensive.
Flights are
and the
more
time.
expensive. You have
Yeah.
to spend perhaps an extra day at the hotel, which is extra money. So to be able to say, well, we'll be in your neck of the woods in a couple years, but in the meantime, you can at least join us virtually.
Yeah.
It's another option for
That's
you.
lovely. Well, I must say, from the get-go, one of my favorite things when I first found GPA and started attending conferences and joining the chapter was the staff has always been so lovely and so kind and so there for us. That's
Yeah.
one of my favorite things about GPA. So I just want to say thank you for loving on us like you do.
Your
Love our
membership
jobs.
dollars at work.
Right here.
Right here, Bar Box, ladies and gentlemen. So I know that you have to jet off to solve some sort of thing or some logistical thing that would make me just want to go lie down.
Probably.
And thank you for being you.
It was
Happy
great
to
having
do
you,
it.
Barb.
So next up, we spoke with Siobhan Richardson. Siobhan has over 20 years of experience as a grant writer, nonprofit leader, program manager, federal grants reviewer, and her role as founder and CEO at Think and Eat Grant Consulting. Siobhan helps organizations transform their grant-seeking strategies. And in her spare time, she is also the president of the Grant Professional Association's Board of Directors.
All right, Siobhan, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So we just want to hop right in and talk about the crazy, wonderful, in a good way things that GPA has done and grown and been all as you have grown into your presidential role at the board of directors. So really, there's been so much growth. I'm wondering how has GPA risen to the challenge? And there's a part two. And what can we look forward to in 2025?
Yes, two very exciting questions. So, we're here at GrantSummit, so this is always a great time of year. And with growth also means an increase in registrants for the GrantSummit. So
Was it sold out this year?
just about.
I mean, close.
sold
I mean, we
out.
got a lot of people here
It's
already.
a lot of people. I think we're probably like breaking on at the top of our capacity
Yeah,
as far
yeah.
as our folks here. So
That's
we're probably
exciting.
sold out. But it's a good thing is that we offered the virtual option during COVID, and that is still sticking around. So we're able to educate even more folks that aren't able to be here in person, but connecting with them. So that has been a great opportunity for growth because instead of people saying, "Hey, I can't make it, I'm not
Or
going to go,"
can't afford it.
or can't afford it,
Yeah.
they could participate virtually. So that's a really, really good thing. As far as how we're supporting members, we know with growth, that means we're going to have all types of members, new
Yep,
grad
yep,
professionals, those that have probably been in the field for years but are just want to connect and find their people.
Yeah.
We'll have people from rural communities, urban communities, all across the country. So it's just being really responsive and being ready as we grow more, and we're supporting the needs of more people of being able to have what they need when they get here.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Anything coming up in 2025 that you can say?
Well, just keep an eye out for more investments and attention to our chapters.
Okay.
Nice.
So I say our chapters are our heartbeat of GPA.
Yeah.
Every year we have a President's Award, and my President's Award is given to a member who has been really leading their chapter in very unique ways. So normally it's just
Nice.
a person the president picks.
Yeah.
But this year I asked for nominations
Yeah.
from members to nominate someone that's been doing a lot of really good things. And as an Unsung Heroes Award,
Oh, nice.
it's
I
an
like that.
award for a person who has never been recognized,
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
right? So more to come on that, but I'm really
Okay.
excited about that. And hopefully we'll maybe do it again next year, but this is our first year doing it. And
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we all know we're all members of the Georgia GPA chapter, which of course, best chapter out there,
Best.
right? Not that we're biased at all.
Certainly.
But we all know because we all served in some capacity at the chapter level, and it's great experience. But it's 100% volunteer, and GPA staff does a great job of supporting, but it's still a lot of work.
It's a lot of
So
work.
we appreciate all those folks.
And I know they're going to appreciate the new direction for even more support for chapters
Absolutely.
and whatever
Yes.
form that may be taking in
Yeah.
2025.
Yeah. We want to really be responsive to our members' needs, and we know chapters are on the ground and they can support them locally.
Yeah.
So we've been doing chapter assessments all this year, and the staff has been really responsive to giving the chapters what they need. So that's probably why you've also seen a lot of regional conferences popping up.
Yep.
Because staff has been playing a more important role in being responsive to their needs. So we'll keep the momentum
important.
going.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for
Thanks for
sharing
having
this.
me. Yeah,
it was
Always a
great.
pleasure.
Love it.
Next up, we have Tammy Tilsey. Tammy is the founder and principal of Willow Peak Consulting, a firm that helps organizations reach their growth goals. In 2024, she wrapped up her final term as the public member of the Grant Professionals Certification Institute. Let's take a listen to learn more about that role. Well, Tammy, welcome to the show.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here.
We're glad to have you here. So, Tammy's part of our Grant Summit interviews. We had to rearrange some things because Grant Summit is always a bit of a fabulous but crazy time. So, we're catching up a little bit after Grant Summit happened. But we're talking to Tammy because she is the public member of the Grant Professional Certification Institute Board of Directors. In fact, by the time you're listening to this, she will have finished her final term. I believe you've been on that board for 8 years. I think you served an unexpired term and then did 2 full terms of your own.
Exactly.
Yeah. So for people who are not familiar with the Grant Professional Certification Institute, this body administers the National Grant Professional Certified, the GPC credential. Can you explain why there is a public member and what that role brings to the table?
Those are great questions, and something that a lot of people aren't aware or don't understand fully. So the first part of the question is good. Why have public members on boards, and why do some boards need them? And the short answer is that the public member brings the perspective to the decision making that is different from the members of the profession. So looking at all the issues and the policies and procedures from the viewpoint of the public, and to make sure that the consumers of the service or product that is certified are protected, represented, and also their interests are factored in on all of the decisions. So that's my role and what I bring to the board. And there's, it isn't like a special assignment. I'm still a voting member of the board. The public member is, so attending all the meetings and having a basic understanding of the profession, the credential, the GPC credential is something that I need to have. But understanding the ins and outs of it is not the role that I bring or experience that I need to really to work well in this role. It's more of understanding those interests of those who are served by it. So asking myself the question, how does the public benefit from this certification? The credential, do they benefit from it? And if they don't, making sure that we build it up or change it or have policies and processes to really strengthen that. And the GPC is really, I've enjoyed working with that because there is so many obvious benefits to people who have the credential, and understanding that if you have the credential, that's what it means, that you have the experience as a grant professional. So it communicates a lot about the ethics, the experience, and the capabilities of the grant professionals who hold that credential.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, I was actually on the GPCI board when someone had done the research and was like, hey, we don't have this thing and we should. So for the first couple of years, there wasn't a public member, but they brought it for all the reasons that you talked about, Tammy. And it was interesting trying to start off with someone who, because you need someone who understands what grant professionals do, but they themselves are not a grant professional. And so we kind of all, I remember the first year, everybody was putting out feelers like, who do we know that sort of touches this, but isn't a GPC or wouldn't want to be a GPC because that's not in their wheelhouse. And so it does bring an interesting perspective, I think, that is needed. It's helpful.
I think
Yeah, so looking at that element of sometimes public members are defined, that role is defined best or understood best by what they are not. And to your point, I'm not a grant professional, right? I have not written a grant in my life, right? But I do understand how the grant application and the whole philanthropic process with funders and the benefit that funders get from a well-written grant application, relationships with the funders, and then it's kind of hard to find somebody who has not benefited from the work of a grant professional, right? So, because everybody grants do so much. So really not being a present or former member of the profession, not related to a member of the profession, and no financial stake in the profession, that's what a true public member needs to come from that perspective.
I think it adds so much to any board, and I wish it was more common to consider that, especially for these kinds of a professional association boards. I think it's just really important to bring someone who is adjacent in the field, but not so immersed in it that then you sort of get out of that mind meld kind of thing where everybody is thinking and saying the same things all the time, and then you might miss something. So thanks
Yeah.
for bringing that perspective.
I appreciate that. I really have really come to enjoy this role and the questions that I get to ask that are a little bit different and the value provided by that. Like, how are we creating value beyond just the credentialing the professionals and looking at that and communicating it and making sure it's not diluted, making sure it's not unattainable. The sweet spot on that is just something that has been very rewarding, and I have really enjoyed my 8 years in service of the Grant Professional Certification Institute, and I will be really supportive and continue and hope that I still feel like I'm part of Grant Professionals, even though I am not one. But this community has really being involved in it has changed my life and really grown to love Grant Professionals, and anything that I can do to hold them up and let other people hear their voice and see how awesome Grant Professionals are. Because if you had extra time, you wouldn't talk about yourselves, right? You would go fill out another grant application or look for another funding, right? You're not, but there's an element of party still in the Grant Professionals. They're quirky, love each other, great. So I am just so excited to have been part of this community and hope to continue being part of the community going forward in my support.
Well, thank you so much. How sweet. I'm a little verklempt.
I know. Well, and I was going to say thanks for your service. Both Kimberly and I have had our GPC for a long time now. And so the GPC would not be around if there wasn't a board that continued to keep it valid and reliable and up to date. And it's a lot of hard work to serve on a board it's an all volunteer board. So we thank you for your service and what you've done for our profession. And of course, to know Tammy Tilsey is to love Tammy Tilsey. So thanks for being our friend.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity to talk about such a great organization on such a fun and growing podcast. I really appreciate the invitation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As the grant development manager at the Cherokee Nation, Erin Van Gilder plays a pivotal role in overseeing a dynamic team of grant professionals responsible for the coordination and development of grant applications on behalf of the tribal government. She oversees approximately 200 applications a year and has developed all kinds of programs, policies, and procedures to keep everyone in compliance with all those grants. She also serves on the Grant Professional Foundation's board of directors.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Erin.
Nice to be here.
We're glad to have you. So, for those who don't know, Erin is a first-year member on the Grant Professionals Foundation Board of Directors. So thanks for your service. And not only that, but you recently stepped into the role as secretary. And so you already have your own full-time job and a family and a life. So working on a volunteer board does take some time and energy. What made you decide that, okay, GPF is where I want to spend that time?
Okay, well, I really fell into grants 10 years ago.
Oh, yes, we love a grant
Yeah.
origin story.
Yes. And so previously I had been an English teacher, which, yes. So my first year, I discovered the GPA Summit conference. It was a conference then. And I was like, we really need to go to this. We are an office of 2 people, so we need to figure out what we're doing. And then the tribal government that I work for, they decided that they were going to centralize our entire office. And so all grant applications started coming through here. And then I've really been a big promoter of GPA in general and like the continuing education.
Sure.
And then I found out about the board in 2016, right? And so I really have been like monitoring it and like should I apply? Do I know enough?
Okay.
Could I do it? Could I do it in my spare time?
Yeah.
Because you know how much we have.
Yeah.
Right.
And so last year I just decided to go for it.
Uh-huh.
And then I interviewed with Dana Patterson.
Oh,
and
nice.
So lovely.
Yes, and
Nice.
Dr. Bev. And
Uh-huh.
so,
Okay.
and I was like, oh, I'm really nervous about this. But once we got on, I got approved to be on the board. Dedicating that time and being able to work with people who are also interested in furthering education and making sure that, because I'm from a small town, rural
Right.
Oklahoma town, where there's not a lot of resources and there's not a lot of like specifically grant professional people.
Yeah.
And so being part of that and like furthering that through GPF is something that I'm really super passionate about. And so, I mean, that's the reasoning behind my joining the board.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And I'm loving, I know it takes a lot to put yourself forward. And I'm so glad you did, right? I think that's so cool about GPA. There are all these opportunities for that.
Yeah. And I mean, just having those resources like through GPA and GPF
Right.
is just amazing. And I always promote it to my staff and other departments where I work at. So.
Right. So I know there's scholarships of all different kinds, right? Conference, membership, another thing that I'm thinking of, but I can't remember. And there's certainly now
the GPC exam.
Oh, thank you. The
Yes.
GPC exam. And there's also a hardship fund that has expanded in the wake of the big hurricanes that blew through the Southeast. So you got all these things going on, which is great. But if we wanted to tell people who are maybe interested in either the GPCI scholarship, the membership scholarship, or the GrantSummit scholarship, what's the best way for them to find out information on like when those applications open? Where can they go?
It would be the grantprofessionalsfoundation.org website, and all of that should be on there, and it's a quick online application process. So it just asks a few questions about you and your experience, and then it gets submitted to the panel.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I can say I was a recipient, I think in 2009 of that, and I had been a member of GPA for years. And back, 2008 when the recession hit, my city I worked for was like, no unnecessary travel. And I'm like, you don't understand. GPA is necessary travel, y'all. But I got it. And so I missed 2 years. I missed going to the conference because they just didn't have the funds. And I was like, okay, it's been 3 years now since I've been. I need to learn. And but I felt like I couldn't apply because I'm like, well, I've been a member forever. This is for new people, but really it's not. It's for it's not based on the size of your organization. It's really just you're explaining why it is you need the scholarship this particular year.
And it doesn't matter how long you've been a grant professional, right? Because budgets come and go, hard times come and go. It's not related to experience.
Yep.
Exactly. And the questions reflect that on the applications.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I will say too, if you are a grant professional, this application can be done. It is not a federal proposal. It's not even an online typical foundation form. It is very straightforward. It is, I think, is it still just 4 questions basically?
I think yes.
Yeah, just a handful
4 or
of
5
questions.
Yeah. So it is not, don't feel like, oh my gosh, it's going to take me 3 weeks to do it. No, if you're writing grants, you can fill this out.
For sure.
So, awesome.
Well, thanks for stopping by, and thanks for helping everybody understand how they can access the important work that you do. And thank you for volunteering and having the courage to put yourself forward.
Well, thanks for having me, and I appreciate your support.
Yes.
Laura Gore, GPC, is the Director of Grants Development at Boyd Grants. In 2024, she completed her second term on the Board of Directors of the Grant Professionals Association, where she has served as liaison to many of GPA's committees, including the Ethics Committee. Let's learn a little bit more about the work that committee does for our profession.
Well, welcome, Laura. We're so glad to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
And you may notice, we know, you may hear or watch people walking across the background talking, they're chatting. That's because you're listening to this in 2025. We're recording this in 2024, so back in time. Because we are at the GrantSummit conference powered by the Grant Professionals Association. So let's just know that, and let's enjoy this section.
So, well, Laura is wrapping up her final year on the GPA Board of Directors, so congratulations for
Nice.
that.
Golf clapping, air
6
clapping.
years of service. That's awesome. And for the past 2 years, you've served as the liaison for the Ethics Committee of the GPA. And I know so many people hear that phrase and they think, oh, y'all are the ethics police. Dun,
Dun, dun.
But there's no law and order here. So what I would love today is to hear from you all the great and wonderful work that the Ethics Committee does, so people don't have that first impression when they hear that word.
Absolutely. We are definitely not the ethics police. That would be no fun for anyone.
No.
So, technically the committee would have a role in reviewing any formal submitted complaint about an ethics violation by a GPA member. But those are very rare, and mainly our work is to support GPA members with some resources and some camaraderie discussion around all the ethical, sticky ethical situations that you might face, big or small. So the Ethics Committee's work is focused on a couple of different things. So mainly promoting the GPA Code of Ethics, and we do that in a couple of different ways. So one thing that the committee members do is write articles about various ethical considerations, and we publish those quarterly in GPA's Grant News, the weekly e-newsletter.
All right, yeah.
And then also every October is Ethics Month in GPA's world.
Come on down, it's Ethics Month.
That's right. So in Ethics Month, Ethics Committee members
Got it.
Write articles, and those 4 articles for the month are published once a week in October as Ethics Month. And then beyond articles, we host group discussions, and so those are called discussion dens. You can learn about those on the GPA website. They are generally quarterly. And
Are they online?
They are virtual,
Okay. Yeah,
except for at GrantSummit.
Sure.
There is one in person during GrantSummit, but normally they are online and they are not recorded. You can keep your camera off. You can change your name if you want to, but you can come
There's
and
no
ask.
judgment.
There's no judgment.
And we like the method of, I'm asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend.
Yes. You can come and ask questions for your friend on any kind of topic that you might be struggling with or wondering about. Get some guidance on how to handle those sorts of situations. Those are very valuable discussions, and truly, there's no judgment in those conversations. Another committee activity is to monitor Grant Zone conversations. And so Grant Zone, of course, is the online discussion forum for GPA members. And the Ethics Committee loves seeing questions around ethical considerations in
Nice.
Grant Zone. That helps us kind of know what's out there, what's brewing as ethical hot topics these days. And those conversations on Grant Zone might lead to additional resources, like an article focused on that particular issue or a future discussion den focused on that issue. And committee members have a role in responding to those ethical questions.
Right.
So we try to do that fairly quickly and contribute to those conversations.
I'm loving the online opportunities and in-person opportunities, but maybe for people like me who are like, is there another way? Is there something, is there a takeaway? Is there another tool that I could either take back to my agency or my client for ethical considerations to sort of think about and discuss there? What do you have that you could offer?
Absolutely. We recommend GPA's ethical decision-making model. So that is a fancy title for a document that is on GPA's website, but really, functionally, it's a roadmap to help each of us think through these ethical situations.
Sure.
So that helps us identify all the factors, evaluate the implications, think ahead about what happens if I decide to do A and what happens if I decide to do B, and then kind of measure those outcomes of that ethical decision that you make. So it's been a very helpful tool. Some committee members worked very hard to develop that in recent years. So that, again, is on the GPA website. And then another tool that we have as a reference is GPA's statement on artificial intelligence as it relates to the GPA Code of Ethics. So that too is on the website. There's a statement from GPA as GPA's position on artificial intelligence in grants. And then also there's a statement from the committee as well. So you can read a little bit expanded perspective on that as well. So those are helpful resources that we refer people to.
Nice.
For those of us who prefer to read some guidance and think through
Processing,
it by
no
ourselves.
judgment.
Yeah, processing a little bit. That's very much me. So those are a couple of tools that we have.
Nice.
Fantastic. So, well, thanks for sharing all that. And if people are interested, like this is my kind of committee, what's the timeline for getting involved in this group?
Great question. The call for committee members for any committee that you might be interested in generally happens every November, mid-November or so. And so be on the lookout in GPA's Grant e-News weekly newsletter. That's where you'll learn that information. So call for committee members, and then there will be an opportunity to participate in a webinar to learn more about what it means to be a committee member of any committee member, particularly if you're interested in ethics. That is a great starting point for you. Just for context, the Ethics Committee generally meets about every other month or so, depending on what's going on. So it's not a crazy time commitment of every other week or anything, but it's a really great committee that does valuable work and really has been a fulfilling committee to be involved in.
Nice.
We've met lots of people who have brilliant ideas around how to support each other in ethics. So I'd encourage anybody to get involved if you're interested in that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us and telling us all about the Ethics Committee, which is not the Ethics Police, okay, y'all? It's not.
It isn't. She's right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Another GPA committee comprised of volunteers is the Publications Committee. Debbie DiVirgilio is a member of that committee, overseeing the blog posts written for the weekly e-newsletter. She's also a nonprofit coach, consultant, teacher, and an advocate for the work of nonprofits. Let's learn how individuals can get involved with the Publications Committee, either as serving on that committee or by providing the work, the blogs, the articles, and all that kind of the words for publication.
Well, hey there, Debbie. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be here.
Glad to have you. So you serve on the Grant Professional Association's Publications Committee, which encompasses a whole lot of things. Can you tell us what all the committee oversees for those who don't know?
Sure. We have 3 main publications. The first is the weekly grant newsletter, e-newsletter. So if you're not receiving it, you should go to our website and sign up so you get it and you stay abreast of everything that's going on. And that comes out every single week on Tuesdays. We also have the GPA strategy papers, and then we also have the GPA journal. So the GPA grant newsletter is a great opportunity for beginners or for people who've never been published before to dip their toe in the water and get some exposure. There's no specific topic you need to write on. It can be basically anything related to the grants field. I find that many people are still calling themselves grant writers. And so one of my roles as the editor of that newsletter is to go through and change everything to grant professionals. And then we have the grant strategy paper. So maybe you've gotten some experiences doing an article for the newsletter, and now you want to write a little bit more. So this is an opportunity to really encourage innovative thinking about a topic related to the grants profession. It does require 3 or more resources or scholarly references. So it's a little more in depth. And that call for, well, let me back up. Call for the grant newsletter. We do it a year in advance. We get schedules. So every November, you'll have an opportunity to sign up. And it's sometimes hard to think of a topic right off the top of your head. So you can always use to be determined and think about it for a while.
Ask us how we know. Yes.
So get your date, and then at least you've got it reserved. We did change it this year. We are asking all blog posts to come in a month before they're published.
Yeah.
And that gives us time to get them edited, because before we were working, it was, there was no time in there.
Yeah. Right.
So last year we decided to make the change that there would be a month.
Smart.
And then that way, if somebody gets sick, somebody doesn't do it, we also have time to fix it.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So the GPA strategy paper, watch the email as well, because that will we'll have a call for strategy papers as well. So that one's a little more in depth. And then if you really want to take a big step into the publishing world, you can go for the GPA journal. And this is your opportunity to really address some innovative idea in the field and contribute research-based information, maybe a case study. It does require 3 to 5 scholarly references. So it's much more in depth. It's going to go through a lot of editing. There's a whole editing process, which can discourage people, but don't get discouraged. We're just trying to make you as good as you possibly can be.
Yeah.
And it's, sometimes people get confused. What's the difference between a strategy paper and a journal article? Rule of thumb, the journal article is longer than a strategy paper.
Okay.
It's also more based on research. So it's more in depth, based on research, and it's really looking at innovative things that are happening in the field. So those are our 3 main publications.
That's great. Well, and do you have any encouragement for people who are maybe intimidated? Because I know I was never, like, I'd see those calls every January for strategy and journal articles, and I was like, nope, I'm not touching that. That's it's a peer-reviewed process. It seems scary. Well, and I'm like, it's been a really long time since I've had to do like hardcore research and citations, and college was a while ago. And so it really was one of my peers going, hey, I want to do this article with you, which I would encourage. That it's a great way if you're scared to do it alone. Is to having maybe do it.
Well, you're sharing the work.
I think you did your first one with a couple of other people.
I did.
Didn't you?
It was years ago.
About site visits.
Site visits,
right?
and we did. It was at least 3 of us.
Yes.
And we just divided up the sections and provided our own citations for our sections, and I felt like it was a lot easier to jump into it that way. Yeah.
And your committee, I think, does a great job of like reminding when things are due and walking you through the process. And
That's right.
You have a lot of people on that committee doing a lot of things.
We do have a lot of people on the committee, but if you think about the peer review process, that takes a group of people.
Yeah.
There are 2 editors for the newsletter.
Okay.
So we sort of split up
Sure.
the articles as they come in.
Nice.
And then there's a whole team that's a peer review just for the strategy papers, and then a whole peer review team for the journal.
Nice.
So, and if you think about it, it's really important that we go through that process, because if we're contributing to the field, it has to be top quality. It has to be good. So we need to do that.
Yeah. If someone wanted to join the publications committee, is there they just need to reach out to staff at GPA, or are you currently looking for new members? Is that
Well, year before last, we were kind of really hurting for members. We have quite a few new members have joined.
Nice.
But we do always look for members, because you just never know, life changes and that sort of thing. I think it's January.
I think it is when all the committees get going in January.
So January is the time, right?
That's right.
If you want to know about any of these things, people should sign up for the make sure they're receiving the newsletter.
That's right.
That it's not going to your spam folder or
That's
whatever.
right.
And that's the time if you're interested in really any of these, right? The blog post, strategy.
Well, the blog post is going to come out
November.
in the next few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, November if that comes out.
So if you're listening to this and you missed our episode and you're just getting back, it's okay. It's every November blog post, and then January for the longer strategy papers, and then the peer-reviewed journal.
Yeah.
So
and
those
I
are the
would
keys.
suggest, if you're listening to this later and you've missed the call for blog post for 2025, go ahead and reach out to Amy at the GPA office, because sometimes there's opportunities. Somebody decides they can't do it, somebody gets sick.
Life happens.
So go ahead and reach out, and she'll let you know if there's any opportunities available.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So, well, thanks for letting us know about the Publications Committee.
You are quite welcome. Thank you.
So y'all, for this last interview, I got to play solo host because I was interviewing the 2024 Grant Professionals Class of Distinguished Fellows, right? That's a mouthful, but that includes Dr. Bernard Turner, Dr. Erica Harney, and Amanda Day, Esquire. Y'all, I know she's not a lawyer. I just like to say that. Okay, go. I just want you to listen in as these extraordinarily accomplished grant professionals lay it down about how important volunteer services and other essential activities have been for them and those they serve.
So today we are turning the tables on Fundraising HayDay, and I'm interviewing Amanda and Dr. Erica Harney and Dr. Bernard Turner because they're all, I'm going to get the name, they're all Distinguished Fellows Class of 2024 with the Grant Professionals Association. So I have one question that you're all going to answer in your unique ways, bringing everything to the table. It's an incredible honor and so well deserved, first off.
Thank
so
you.
We're going to start with Dr. Turner. So we listened to the exhaustive list of everything that you've done. I had to take a nap partway through it. But a lot of it was also giving back in terms of all the volunteer work you've done, not only for the Grant Professionals Association, but for many, many HIV/AIDS related causes that I can't even remember them all. So you're volunteering on top of an incredibly demanding academic life and development and fundraising life. So what advice would you give to people who are like, oh, I don't even know how to begin?
I think we all should be having our DNA to give back.
Right?
I teach social entrepreneurship, and all of my classes are experiential education.
Okay.
So that means the students are out in the field in addition to being in the classroom. And my mantra has always be give back, reach back, pull somebody up. So I don't care how busy I am. You know, I serve on the 2 boards in Nashville, soon to be 3. But I brought that to me when I joined GPA in 2001. I'm going to say 21. But, you know, I was looking for something specific to us and what we do in the grants field.
Right.
And so once I got in, I started being on committees and things. Same thing I do in my life. Same thing I do in my church. I used to go on medical mission trips.
Right.
Over the scholarship committee. And I think that stems back from my mother and my mother continually tell my sister, brother, and I that you're going to volunteer. And we used to say, volunteer, we got homework to do. My mother said, one day you'll appreciate this. Just like she used to make us eat breakfast every morning before we went out to school.
Fair.
You know?
It's fair.
But volunteering should be from the heart. It should not be because you have to do it for any other reason. Mm-hmm. And if you do it, and just remember, when you're volunteering, you really impacted somebody's life. Yeah. And you never know what people have gone through. Mm-hmm. Whether I tell my students, when you go over to do your service learning hours, you know, we do room in the inn on our campus at a church. You are not to go over there and just put food on a plate. Mm-hmm. You should talk to the people. And then they come back and say, oh my God, you know, John, we call them guests when they in there. Oh my God, John, Dr. T, he got a doctorate like you. Mm-hmm. And he said, but he homeless. I said, and then he started telling me, I said, well, how do you know that? The student cocked his head, didn't you tell us to go over there and serve food, but also talk to him? Mm-hmm. So that's my whole, it's in my DNA to do.
So just taking those first steps and just following through. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of people who are perpetually on the go and busy and have, I don't even know, there were like...
There's lots of letters behind her name.
There's lots of letters. There's lots of different things. I feel like there was a nonprofit or a social entrepreneurship thing starting. And Anyway,
There's a lot of things in there
so
that are
I've
different,
known
fun.
you for years, and so
Yes.
I'm just going to say Erica, but I'm going to say Dr. Erica Harney, distinguished fellow, class of 2024. What advice would you give grant professionals, let's say, or people who are listening? They're like, well, I know I should volunteer. I know,
Yeah.
I'm too busy.
Well, and I know everybody's time starved, and that list was over 25 years, or more than 25 years, because the volunteering started a long time ago. Also as kid, so it was like, this is what you're going to do, and a lifetime spent in Girl Scouts, and that's where this little bug got turned on. But I think now, having folks doing the same thing, managing a career, managing a home, and then this idea of volunteering, whether it's the PTA or your local church or something like that, the biggest thing that I have, to a degree too, and regretted, is I said yes too much, when no is a complete sentence. And I want to do all the things. I want to volunteer for everything. Anything for girls and women was like, all right, yeah, I'll be there. And then, so I say be intentional about what you pick, and if it's 3 years or whatever that stint is, because I had overcommitted a lot. And that was a hard lesson. That was a hard lesson to learn.
It's true.
And so, be intentional. Pick something that you really, really like, that is not going to be something that you're like, oh, I have to go to this board meeting. It should be, all right, I get to go to this board meeting. I get to go hang out with these people. Stuff that you really do enjoy, to where it's, volunteerism that you're passionate about. Yeah.
And there's all sorts of research that shows, I know y'all know this, I'm preaching to the choir, but giving back actually has positive, even health benefits.
Yes. My husband and I disagree on some of that stuff, of like altruism and philanthropy, and why people are philanthropic and altruistic, but I feel the same thing.
I mean,
it's a healthy heart.
You definitely you get something back when you give, there's no doubt.
Yep.
So last but not least, my brilliant partner in crime, Amanda Day Esquire. She's not a lawyer. I just like to say that.
That's the thing. I don't know.
It just sounds good.
Yes. Yeah. It sounds rolls off your tongue.
Amanda Day Esquire, attorney at law. But no, she's not a lawyer. But I would love for you to sort of field that same question, because the common theme here is people who say yes a lot. All of y'all say yes a lot to all the things. What would you, maybe if someone is a grant pro and they're wanting to get involved in GPA, because between all of y'all have done pretty much every volunteer job, I think, that is available.
I think Bernard may have done everything.
I think Bernard's
Between all three of you, I mean, seriously, every affiliate organization, board level,
chapter level,
conference, everything. But what would you tell somebody who's like, well, I don't know, or maybe I'm not ready to volunteer? Because people say all kinds of things.
Oh, they do. Well, actually, I'd almost like to rather speak to the people who are already volunteering.
All right.
You're there, you know what it's like. I feel like it's on us as volunteers to reach out to those people who are like, I'm not sure, I don't know. Because, I mean, the reason I started was I found the Georgia chapter before I even found national. I didn't know national existed at first, but found the Georgia chapter, and then of course found that. But my first bit of service was because I had been with the chapter a year. They were about ready to do elections, and so I'm like, I think I want to dip my toe in that water. So I went to, her name was Paula Swartzberg. She was our then president of the chapter, and I said, hey, I love this group. I'd like to give back. I'm thinking maybe running for like secretary or treasurer, kind of just getting started. And she looked at me and said, my term's ending. I'm done. You'd make a great president. That's what you're going to do.
Volunteer recruitment is an important skill.
I was voluntold. And I was like, and she's like, I know you can do it. And also, I'm here for you. I'm not disappearing.
Yeah.
Which I thought, you know what? If I ever in my corner, I can figure this out. And so that's how I did that, which that led to our chapter then hosted a GPC exam in Atlanta. Which is how I met Erica. She was there.
I took that exam.
Yes, we walked to lunch together in between the two exams, and that's how I got to know Erica. But then it was Marcia Ford was the president of GPCI back then, and I guess the fact that I mean, it wasn't that complicated. I got space. We did all the things, but she saw something in me, and the next thing I knew, like 3 months later, I get a thing going, you've been nominated by Marcia Ford to serve on the GPCI board, which Erica Harney's also there too.
Right, we started at the same time.
Like, okay. But and from there I was like, okay, I've done these two things. I know, and even on the GPCI board, again, it was someone on the board was like, hey, next year we need a treasurer. Amanda, we think you can do it. And so my first couple of forays into that was because people saw something in me
and invited
me. And so that is my big thing, is constantly inviting. And it's still our chapter every year. It's like we open up the call for nominations, nothing happens, and I'm like, y'all, people aren't just going to start rolling in.
They will not.
Those of us who've been around before have to start going, hey, Bernard, I've noticed you've been coming a couple of years. You always are at meetings. You're so thoughtful. Have you ever thought about running for VP? I really think you'd make. And guess what? No one's ever told me no. No one's ever gone, oh, no, I can't do that. They're like, oh, well, okay, if you think I can do it. And they're welcome to tell me no for sure. But I just think a lot of people are just waiting to be asked because they just, either they don't think they can do it or they don't want to horn in if somebody else is waiting in the wings. So that's my thing. The volunteers need to ask the next set of volunteers.
And for people who are not in chapters, then the invitation can go out in the weekly newsletter, the GPA newsletter.
The different committees. There's all kinds of things.
But I think we have a directive to invite.
Yeah. But also, don't feel like you have to wait. If you're someone who's a go-getter, go. If you're like, I want to do that, absolutely, I love it.
Great. Well, thank you all so much, and I know that you probably need to go and volunteer for something else in the next 5 minutes. And congratulations, and well-deserved.
Thank you. Well, and I just have to say, here's what I love about this group. So, Erica nominated me, and I didn't know about it, so it was a lovely surprise. I think I wrote a support letter for Bernard and Erica's nominations.
A circle of life.
And so because we've been, like you started in 2001. I think I joined in 2005. 06. Yeah. So we've known each other a long time. Yeah. But we're still so young.
That's right.
No one is saying old here. So thank you all very, very much.
You are a wonderful interviewer.
Isn't she fabulous?
Yes.
I made wise choices in my
past. Very well. That's very kind. But thanks, and thank you for making it a conversation, because that's what it needs to be.
I'm glad I was here the right day today.
Thanks again to today's sponsor, Kim Joyce & Associates. If you want to learn more about their many service offerings, visit kimjoyceandassociates.com. That's KIMJOYCE and associates.com.
So I know, y'all, that we spoke to a whole host of people, right? All kinds of folks sharing all sorts of wonderful things. Today, and frankly, throughout season 8, we're going to be bringing you all sorts of wonderful interviews. It's really sort of the tip of the iceberg in terms of things and ways that you can get involved in the Grant Professionals Association or their 2 affiliate organizations, the Grant Professionals Foundation and the Certification Institute, GPCI. There are more committees. There are over 50 local chapters of GPA and growing. If you've never given back, think about volunteering, and you're going to get back probably double what you give. So just give it a go and give it a try.
Absolutely, because there's so many ways to give back, right? Whether you are on a committee or you're writing a newsletter or helping fund a scholarship, there's just so many ways to give back. So we were excited to share all of this with you. We're also so honored that you chose to spend time with us today. We don't take it for granted that your time is valuable, so we really love that you continue to come back and listen to Fundraising HayDay episodes. We hope you'll join us again in 2 weeks. We've got another great interview. We're speaking with John Hall, another GrantSummit speaker who is talking about coaching up. It's a good lesson for everybody, so you don't want to miss it.